Very good afternoon, everyone. The afternoon leadership series are going to start now today. So, for the leadership series, we have the one on the top 50 women leaders in India, diversity and inclusion leader, Ms. Sirisha Tarepalli, to tell us about breaking the glass ceiling through diversities and inclusion.
Namaste again. Good afternoon. My name is Siddhisha. It is a pleasure and my privilege to be part of this program, Rising Phoenix, and sharing the platform with dignitaries like the Vice President of India, MSME ministers, and other distinguished guest speakers. Today, my topic is on diversity and on breaking invisible barriers and shattering the glass ceiling. So, before we go into understanding what is glass ceiling and how do we conquer it or how do we shatter it, I want to share. An incident that happened to me recently. And I request you to close your eyes and try to visualize and try to imagine as I narrate the incident. So it is, of course, pre-COVID times. I had to travel from Chennai to Bangalore to attend a conference. And I was getting late and I missed, my cab was delayed. It's a rush traffic hour. And I somehow made it to the airport in the last minute. And imagine me running through the corridors and airport corridor and somehow rushing through the check-in security, and I finally board the flight right at the moment. And while I was getting into the flight, I was greeted by the air hostess and the pilot dressed in, this white uniform, the beautiful, spotless white uniforms they usually are. And they greeted and asked me, told me that I was just in time and the flight is going to start. And I had my journey, safe flight, and then I get down to the airport and I went to a cafeteria to have coffee in the airport while I was waiting for my cab. Just imagine me trying to find table in that small cafes in airport, how busy they are. And then somehow I found a table. I shared a table with a couple of professionals, dressed impeccably again in the blazers, shining shoes, laptop bags. I had my coffee and then I took my cab and I went to this conference where I heard to this very dynamic and young and very successful entrepreneur of a startup company. Now open your eyes. So when I was saying that, I have a question for you. Like when I was saying, I was greeted by a pilot on the airport on the aircraft. What were you imagining? I mean, who was the pilot? Was that a male or a female? Uh, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Everyone would have thought it was male. I understand that. I get this often whenever I narrate the story. And when I said that I had coffee in the cafeteria with professionals, again, everyone imagined it was, a couple of male professionals. As I said, they were, professionals, laptop bags, shoes. And then finally, when I said I met this dashing and dynamic entrepreneur, again, everyone would have assumed a Mark Zuckerberg types, young and obviously a male entrepreneur. So this most men and unfortunately most women imagine men in certain roles by default. Now this is a wake-up call. This is what we call as unconscious bias, stereotyping, and second generation gender bias. What is the second generation bias? Remember earlier our grandparents or great grandparents, they were very vocal, and the bias and the discrimination is very visible. They used to tell women can't do some things, women can do some things. Nowadays we say, we hint at women may do something, may not do something. Like they were very strict, and sexual orientation is kind of restricted, and is a topic that was completely out of bounds. Nowadays, we frown upon people having different sexual orientation. Transgenders were outcasted those days, verbally, vocally, visibly. Transgenders nowadays, Supreme Court has given them their rights, but we don't know. I mean, we are yet to watch how they will be treated in future. So what I mean to say is that generations after generations are changing, but this bias towards a marginal section of community, whether it is women, whether it is LGBT, whether it is transgenders, whether it is physically challenged people, that bias might have changed in shape and form and intensity, but the bias is there. And it will remain now and for the generations to come and the generations next, unless we stop it now and we stop it here. If we do not change from within ourselves, and if we do not change our immediate atmosphere, our immediate environment, people who are in our immediate environment, if we do not do that, it is our children, our daughters, our sisters, and their children who are going to suffer in future. So remember that this form of bias is inbuilt, ingrained into our psychology, and it has become our DNA from generations hence. If we have to give our children a better future, we have to take this out of our DNA now. So always remember, the legacy that we want to leave for our children is always dependent on the actions that we take now. With that thought, let us move forward and try to see what is a glass ceiling. Glass ceiling is usually an invisible barrier that prevents certain set of marginalized communities to raise further into senior positions in their jobs, or to move forward basically in their choice of employment or career. And the dangerous thing about this glass ceiling is that it is totally invisible. That is why it is called glass ceiling, because you do not know that when you look up, what you see is sky, or if it is a hard glass, you do not know that. Right? It is invisible, and it is therefore dangerous, because if we know our enemy, we can prepare for and we can fight for, we can fight against them. But when we do not know our enemy, it is very difficult to fight. And why we do not know our enemy is because of the unconscious bias. The example I took of the pilot, because of this unconscious bias, the people who are doing bias themselves don't know that they're doing bias. They think it is their general behavior. An example is, in my previous job, my manager and I, we actually went on very good terms. He thought, because I was married, I have a toddler at that time, a very young kid. My manager thought by default that I may not be willing to travel, and that if he asks me to travel to on-site to do multiple trips, he thought he would be putting me in a position, in a difficult situation, and I may not like it. And his intention was to actually, it was a good intention, but he thought, with that thought in process, he did not give me a chance to travel. He did not give any additional responsibilities to me, because he thought I might find it difficult to juggle between work and personal life. On the other hand, I went through a phase of low morale and confidence, because I was doing my best. I was working hard every day, every night. I was giving my best, and I was waiting for opportunity. I was thinking, why am I not getting rewarded? Why am I not going on site? Why my manager is not trusting me with additional responsibilities? I was so stressed out that I left my job and I found another job. And in my exit interview, my manager was so upset. Like, he was saying, I did everything I could do so I can make things easy for you. Why are you leaving? I was like shocked. I said, no, you didn't do everything. You denied me what I wanted. He said, but I was trying to help you balance your work and life. Balancing my work and my life is my choice and no one else's choice. It must be my decision. I must be the one who should be able to choose whether I want to go on site or not, whether I want to take additional responsibilities or not, whether I'm happy with what position I am in. That decision is purely mine. It's not my manager's decision. He has to ask me. And I then should have a right whether to take it or not to take it. And when I explained this, he was surprised. But at some level, I can, at some emotional level, I completely empathize with him. I understand. I feel good that he cared for me. But that was not how it has to be handled. So this is what is unconscious bias. People may as well have. I mean, we are not talking about. I'm not a man hater. We are not talking against men here. We are saying that because of this ingrained nature of our culture, sometimes or most times there is the bias is unintentional and it is unconscious, and fighting that kind of bias is very difficult, but it's nevertheless important. The reason is, individually, if we do not fight this bias, you will see a lot of problems like pay scale discrepancies, careers get stagnated, like how I lost my confidence and my morale. People will become low and productivity will reduce. For organizations, if you're entrepreneurs, for organizations like you, it is a question of organization responsibility. Nowadays, all organizations are moving towards diversity, moving towards inclusion. They're announcing their percentages of diversity. So it is the order of the day, number one. And another main important thing is the people you serve as organizations, as companies, the audience that you serve, your consumers are always a diverse set of people, because people who buy your products, people who buy your services come from all domains of life and all genders and all types, races, caste, creed, and sex. So when you're catering to all this diverse community, and people who are developing your products, if they're only from one community, how will you be able to be innovative? How will you be creative? How will you be able to meet the requirements of the diverse community? Therefore, you need diversity skill sets. Therefore, you have to work towards incorporating those skill set in your organization. So most of you being students and being newly coming out of colleges and being fresh entrepreneurs or startups, you must be wondering, where is this gender disparity? Because when you are in colleges, you will find in colleges predominantly, unless you are from some mechanical engineering or something, women are, the percentage of women is high. It's the same when you actually see in the entry level of jobs. When you're working in the entry level, the percentage of women is always high. As you see, it's around 55%. In the chart you can see around 55% of the employment at the junior level is always women. But when you move up the ladder, you will see this percentage thinner, and at the top level it's only 20%. And this 20% is also at international level. Within India, it is less than 16%. And if you see in the executive levels, we have less than 7% of women, only 7%. And if you see entrepreneurs, you will see there are hardly 17% of women entrepreneurs. So that is, if there are 100 entrepreneurs in a place, only 17 of them are women. That will give you the horrible disparity that is there, that this gender is causing, and that you will see when you enter into this big bad business world. So why is it that, despite we know all this, and one more thing I want to add is, those numbers I have shown are only for women. And if you consider other communities like LGBT community or the physically handicapped people, I didn't even find numbers. Nobody is bothered enough to even put the numbers. That is the state of their situation in our country and across the world. When is the last time you would have heard of a transgender being in the board of directors? I haven't heard. I mean, it was like never. So why, when we know that there is this glass ceiling, why is it that we were not able to break? What are the challenges? First challenge is unconscious bias. I've already talked about it at length before. The bias is unconscious. That is why it is becoming very difficult to shatter that. And also, we do a lot of stereotyping as a culture in our country and abroad. This problem is everywhere in the world, but particularly in our country, we do a lot of stereotyping. We judge people on appearances, like a woman. If a woman laughs or speaks louder, people consider it as attitude. The woman is showing attitude, but if or showing arrogance. But if a man laughs loud, I mean, talks loud, he's a strong man, or he's a confident man. If a woman laughs louder, don't even take me there. You have movie dialogues on it. And but man laughs louder, they are lauded for their sense of humor. So again, I'm not a man hater, not I'm doing man bashing, but these are some facts. We all have to agree that we do this discrimination. It happens. And again, when we come to the social stigmas, we always have to deal with the conflict within our own houses, conflict at workplace, conflict in the society. Everywhere there's a huge conflict. And then there are very, very few women role models that you can really look up to and learn from, and make them your role models, so get some mentoring for them. Those kind of role models are very, very few in our society. And because of all these things, what happens is, over a period of time, a woman's, or anybody who's marginalized, whether it is a woman or whether it is a physically handicapped person who's on a wheelchair, or a visually impaired person who cannot see, now what happens is, over a period of time, when they're subjected to this kind of oppression, whether it is intentional or unintentional, their self-esteem goes very, very low. They would not have it in them to fight that back anymore. Like it's a Chinese proverb, like if you want to kill a tree in a village, all the villagers come to that tree and they start cursing it, blaming it, and after a period of time the trunk gets rotten, the roots get rotten. That is what has been happening to the soul of these communities, to whether it is women, whether it is transgenders, whether it is physically disabled people. This is their morale and their self-esteem usually is lower than the rest of us, because of these problems. And because their self-esteem is low, they cannot voice out their opinions. They have hesitation to come out of their comfort zone. They fear judgment, and that restricts them to shatter the glass ceiling. So now we established why glass ceiling is so strong. Now let us see how we can shatter it, how we can really remove that, what we can do so that our future generations benefit from our activities today. Step one, we need to create awareness, and we need to be aware ourselves. We need to educate ourselves. It is very, very difficult to relate ourselves to the problems that these people are having, because human minds are constructed very differently. You really can't understand what other person is feeling. It is very difficult unless it happens to us or to someone close to us. Like something like that happened to me a few years ago, where I met with a big accident, and I was like bedridden for some time, and then I was wheelchair ridden for over a year. That is when I realized the problems of physically handicapped people. When I went to office, I mean, if for a normal person, if you have to go to restroom, it is like a 2 minutes job. You just say, I'll be back in a minute. You just go and do your thing and come back. But imagine for a person who's in wheelchair, it will take half an hour just to go there, push the wheelchair, go into the restroom. And then this is provided they have separate restrooms with facility where, you can press a button and the door opens and you can drive your wheelchair inside. And there's a place where you can lock it, and railings which you can hold on to. Provided there are such facilities, it will take more than 20-30 minutes, and not to talk about their dignity. And if you have to enter into a room that has 2 steps, it just take 20 seconds for us. But for a person on wheelchair, they can't even enter for something very simple like that. They need a ramp. And how sensitive are we to this kind of requirements that they have? In states, at least the situation is a little better. The public transportation, the public buildings are all equipped to actually take it for inclusion. They call it inclusion, and their buses have special railings. The trains have special railings. We don't have any of those facilities, and neither do our buildings have. When I was really discharged from the hospital, that is when I realized that my apartment is also not, inclusion friendly. I was not able to. We had to, before I get discharged and came home, we had to invest 21,000 rupees to build a ramp on the other side of the lift so I can come in the wheelchair. So our architects, or we all do not have that awareness also to include these kind of things, this kind of aesthetics into our day-to-day life. Because of that, these activities, which are so simple, so small, so seemingly very trivial, activities also become such big hurdles for people who are visually or physically challenged. So this is just one example. Like that, there are so many people with so many problems. I'm not saying we have to learn everything and we have to solve all the problems. We cannot do that. The least we can do is we educate ourselves, be aware of this kind of issues, of this kind of problems, and be sensible and sensitive when we are handling with those kind of people. Similarly, the second step is be a change maker. Once you understand, you get this awareness, you be the change that you want to see in the world. Be a change maker. Start taking small steps in your immediate environment. Make sure at least your apartment complexes have certain facilities. Make sure your immediate colleagues are aware of this kind of issues, of this kind of biases, and how to handle them. And finally, create programs to celebrate the differences in us. We all are different. Each individual is different. We all come from different cultures, different backgrounds, and that uniqueness is the beauty. That the entire beauty of our relationships lies in our differences. So we have to celebrate our differences. We should not point them out. We should learn to celebrate our differences. We are social beings. We live in a society. We live as a group, and in a group you have all kinds of people, and now all kinds of people are needed in a group. So what one person lacks, another person complements that. So what is our strength can be another's weakness. What is another's weakness might be our strength, and we complement each other, and that is how we make that balance in the society. So we have to understand that and respect that, and we have to celebrate those differences, and we shouldn't be hating or pointing out those differences, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So in an essence, we have to be sensible to people. In an essence, we have to be nice to people, not because of who they are or what they are, but because of who you are. You have to be sensible to people. And this way we talked about how we can bring in a change. Now let us talk about victims, the people who are actually on the receiving end. If you are a person who is in the receiving end, who is the victim, how do you overcome that and shatter that glass ceiling? Step number one, always remember, note it down, write it or paste it in your bedroom when you wake up, and see that perfection is overhyped. Many people keep talking about perfection, be perfect, and as if perfection is everything. But remember one thing, perfection is really overrated, and it is overhyped. I mean, perfection is needed if you're building a nuclear reactor. Perfection is needed for machines, not for human beings. We are human, and we need to be human. We need to be real. We need not be perfect. Of course, we need to understand our strengths, our weaknesses, and we need to make an effort to continuously improve on our weaknesses. But that doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. And if you pause your life because someone said that you are not perfect, it is not going to work. You shouldn't pause. You should keep moving. Like Mr. Edison, Thomas Alva Edison, who invented electric bulb, he failed hundreds of times before he made that one perfect electric bulb. And when someone asked him about it, he said that I haven't failed. I have found 10,000 different ways that won't work. That's all. That is how life should be. And second point, step up, step out of your comfort zone, come out and take that risk. if you just sit and dream, it won't work. Your dreams won't come true. Your dreams will come true only if you work on them. You have to take that step. You have to take that difficult step, one step forward, and start working on your dreams. The success stories, there is not a single success story where there are no tears, where there is no pain, where there is no suffering, where there are no sleepless nights. There isn't a single success story like that. Success stories are always over Success stories always overcome an abundance of pain and endurance. And but when you step out into the light, all that you have suffered will fade away, and it will all be worth it. So take that step out, take that risk, and do that work. And there will be failures, of course. One thing is certain, as night and day in our life, is that you will fail. Everyone will fail. There is nothing you can do to stop that. It is what you do after that that will define where you go. The only way to push failure aside is to move ahead. And how do you move ahead? You don't ignore a failure, learn from the failure, get up, learn from the failure, and move ahead. You will never enjoy success as much unless you tasted the failure. So take that risk, fail, and fail again, but then rise like a phoenix. Thank you.
Yeah, so to be honest, scattering the glass ceiling, that was such a unique topic, and that was the first time I heard something like this. And your vision, it's totally unique and different, ma'am. I think we all of us, each and every one of us, need to follow that vision, and we just need to overcome these things, overcome, and then break the glass ceiling to come out of it and rise like a phoenix. Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for being the part of
You're
the
welcome.
summit. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.